This is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk about the Space Shuttle Challenger. The Challenger, which crashed in January of 1986, over 32 years ago now. But I wanted to talk to you about my reminiscences of the event, because there's a lot of stuff that was going on that was very prevalent in the news that doesn't seem to get talked about now. And that is, this was going to be the 25th mission. It was in January of 1986. It had been delayed several times due to technical issues and this and that. But one of the things that we found that were fascinating was the reading before the flight. And there was a lot of angst going on pertaining to O-rings and the temperature. And there seemed to have been some battles going on within NASA, which was mentioned in the press. Now, here's something interesting. I was working at Belcor at the time, and Belcor was one of the baby Bells. After AT&T was torn apart, Bell Labs kind of went its own way, and the AT&T got torn apart, and this, that, and everything else. They had all those signs saying that Judge Green was a bell buster and all that other stuff. But I was working there, and we had a system for communication there. It was not the internet, but it was the next best thing. It was a message system, so we could communicate interofficely, and also get news as it happened live on our computers. Now the thing is that there was, starting in the morning when the liftoff was going to take place, there was a lot of talk about the ice. There was a lot of talk about the O-rings, and there was a lot of talks about the fact that the mission should be scrubbed. And this was prevalent a lot that morning. And I remember in conversation with people that I work with, we were discussing the ice and the O-rings and this, that, and everything else. And the general feeling was they're not going to send a spacecraft into the air unless things are safe. And of course, we didn't give it too much thought, but that was something that caught our eye and our mind, the fact of the ice, the shrinking O-rings, etc. And it was a source of conversation that morning. Well, I got busy with work and didn't give too much attention to it. And there was a fellow that worked there, an Indian fellow, but he always had a smile on his face. And I remember he walked by me and said, "The space shuttle blew up." And I wasn't quite sure whether he was joking or being serious because he had that big smile on his face. And so I got into the computer, and lo and behold, it had. And then I went back to the news articles from before, and it was interesting to read that the individual there had stated that it was a mistake because they felt that there would be a problem with the O-rings. And of course, they were proved correct. And I didn't see the footage. I didn't see any of it until I got home that night, and I turned on the television, and it was just playing over and over and over again. And I got a lot of ideas of what had happened, and of course talked to lots of people, and of course President Reagan was on the television that night. And it turns out that, lo and behold, one of the contributing factors, one of the problems with this whole thing was indeed those O-rings. There were other factors as well. But the interesting thing is this. that NASA was working on a schedule, and they were more concerned with the schedule than they were with following all the safety procedures. It caused a great shakeup at NASA. I can't remember the gentleman's name who was talking about the O-rings, but he was very passionate about it, and the news reports were kind of passionate about it. And after the event took place, there was all hell breaking loose pertaining to them. I remember all that because it was so forefront in our lives. I guess I would also probably say that this is one of those moments that everybody will remember where they were. I remember I was at work, and I always remember that fellow with the constant smile telling me that the shuttle had blown up 32 years ago now. Quite a while, and of course, the space shuttle program is long over. The space shuttle program changed quite a bit after that. There was a lot of changes, but also we did have another problem a few years later pertaining to the tiles that could easily be knocked off. And now, of course, the shuttle program is history. I was fortunate to send something up in one of the shuttles, actually, at one time. And it was an interesting moment in the history of space travel. But I think our minds, when we think of it, will always revert to that moment in 1986 when something that we didn't dream could happen did. And I remember it so very, very well. And I wanted to share this little memory. Thank you.